for it. We asked him for one, and he said, that's no problem, I will give two, and we carried on it, and he was willing to do it. And later on we will have another lecture, a month, and we'll have something on the enkeltrichters and clinichters later. Ruud Wildekamp couldn't make it, but Tony Woods is giving that lecture. So it will also be very interesting, I think, from our point of view. For everyone, there's a mug, special mug made for this event, and you can get it over there at our table, so don't forget to take a mug. Here's yours, Rich.
Oh!
Yeah, it's a big one, so it's for the American coffee, only a small coffee. Adjusted it to your taste, and I hope you like it. Yeah? Well, I won't introduce Rick a lot, I think he will tell something about himself. I hope you enjoyed the lecture.
Thank you. Good morning. How are you today? First of all, I want to thank the organizations and the people involved for inviting me here. I consider this a real honor. I consider myself only an average aquarist who has had some good fortune to meet some very nice people, and I hope that today we will have the opportunity to share all of that. So today's lecture is going to be in my best American, but please stop me if I say something that you do not understand, or if you have something you can share, because what I experienced may be different from what you have experienced in doing something like this. And this morning we will talk about different places in Mexico where one can find many different kinds of fish, including the killifish and the live rivers. I owe a lot of my success and experiences to this gentleman, who you all know well, and I noticed that at least 3 of us are wearing his Fish Ark Mexico shirt today. And we will excuse to it because we forgot his. So I did create this program actually for his organization, the Hobbyist Aqua Lab Conservation Project. And incidentally, in case you did not know, my nickname is Rit, and please call me Rit, but it is really a local short name for Richard, which is the name my mother calls me. Only my girlfriend calls me that, by the way. My wife calls me Rit. My experiences involved 3 weeks in Mexico with Ivan. Yes, I survived. Some of you know Ivan very well. And it was something I had planned on for probably 3 to 4 years and trying to put this together. Now, the time we went was in late of 2006 for the Viviparous Convention, which was held in Mexico, in Morelia. And our plans changed quite a bit due to the circumstances in the USA at the time. But it took us several tries because at one time they said that Ivan could not bring his breathing machine on the airplane. But the plans did change, and we were fortunate enough to put the trip together. And my real hope is that you will have the opportunity to experience this for yourself. And if that opportunity does present itself, try very hard to take advantage of it, because I think that you will find, like I did, it was a trip of a lifetime. We actually organized to meet in Monterrey, which is further to the northeast than Morelia. And from there we hired some cars and drove through San Luis Potosi and into the Morelia area, and stopped at 31 different collection sites to study the fish. And the final week we did spend in Mexico. Some of you will recognize these people. This is Don Kenwood from the UK. Christian Santandrea, who lives in Salzburg, and part of Vivipar France, and his significant other. Tom Crane from the USA, who is our species maintenance person, himself, And our driver and interpreter, a young fellow by the name of Roberto Chavarria, who was from Monterrey, and joined us for the 3 weeks. He was pretty much my travel partner also. Oop, get back there, get back. Okay. It is important to know a bit about the geography of the country of Mexico in order to understand how this all came about. And this is not easy for anybody. Some of us are geographically challenged and you need the GPS to get across your own town. But it was a difficult situation for me because there are very few detailed maps of the geographic terrain in Mexico when you want to go there to study the fish. So city maps are not too bad. We have Mexico City down here. Monterrey is much further north. It is actually almost directly west of the very southern part of the USA. And I was coming from somewhere way up in the middle of in the New York City area. So we flew into Monterrey. Then we drove north to the Monclova area looking for Xiphophorus, and then turned around and came back and went south. We did not visit Durango in this particular trip, but wound up in San Luis Potosi and then Morelia. So our trip was along a jagged line, which went down here, and we finished up by traveling to Mexico City for our return. Our first stop was the University of Nuevo León in Monterrey, which is where Arcadio Valdez, get back there. We're going to have all kinds of fun with this, aren't we? The gentleman standing in the rear of this photo. Can we turn the lights down a little bit? Better. Ivan's purpose here was to attempt to establish a second fish ark in Mexico. So we're all sitting around with the head of the biology department, Dr. Jose Santos Garcia, in an attempt to interest them into being another area which would retain Mexican fish for posterity. We were only mildly successful here. Dr. Garcia was about to retire from his position, so he said, my successor will deal with this, not me. But we were able to give them a hand and visit their aqua lab at the same time. Maybe a little bit smaller than the lab in Morelia. Certainly on the outside he had much larger vats. This is Don Kenwood standing next to a vat which was probably about 3 meters by 5 and probably 1 meter deep. Notice, however, that at the time this portion of his lab had no roof. You can look up here and just see that you can see right out through the sky. They decided all of a sudden that the monies to finish the roof should be used for some other project in the biology department. I guess this is typical of a political environment, but the roof has since been finished. His collection there was extensive and contained many species to the point where they had to have the tubs outside of the building even, where not only was it very warm, but also quite shaded and very difficult to walk in because the ants, the little insects, would come up on your feet. His organization needed a little bit of help because all he really did was he put little decals in the area on a wall and said, this fish is here and that fish is there. And so the vats were not marked, the tubs were not marked. You just had to kind of look in and say, oh, okay, what did the wall say I'm looking at now? But he was very entertaining and very informative, and then he invited us to dinner at his house, where we met some hosts from the local aquarium society, which were mostly the graduate students. And as an aside, I will mention that the American Livebearer Association has decided now that if we want to keep this conservation effort going and keep people in the hobby, the thing to do is to involve more younger people. So we have invited graduate students to join us at our convention and help them with the cost to travel to the convention in the hopes that they will continue the conservation project. After 2 days in Monterrey, we traveled north to an area near Monclova called Cuatro Ciénegas. And to translate that in English, it basically says 4 swamps, bogs. Here we were looking for Zophophorus species, and we did find plenty of fish of many different varieties. Their routes are much better than I had expected. I was expecting to drive on many gravel roads, dirt roads, and stuff like that, but I guess engineering is getting good all over the place. And we did encounter some problems with the Mexican police over there who insisted that we not collect fish in certain areas. One of the fish that we did get a chance to take a look at was in the area where this fish, the Zophophorus cochianus, comes from. Azteca Canyon is completely dry. This fish is completely extinct in the wild, although they do believe there is another river which might contain some yet. But I should be standing in water about up to here. And I said, how did this happen? And they said, well, the city of Monterrey has a population of 2 million people. And as the city grew and people drilled the wells for their own water, they dried up the spring, the Nacimiento, in Azteca Canyon to the point now where it is strictly just a rocky bed that runs out of the canyon. So what did we do then? We made some progress on establishing a second place for a fish ark, but I determined that most of the folks in Mexico are not really happy when we go down there looking for fish in public parks and things like that. We probably were just getting used to the environment. But at that point, as a hobbyist, I concluded that without permits, one could experience some problems. But the usage of water is probably as big a problem in Mexico as is the amount of pollution that industry, factories, and average people are causing in Mexico today. There was one point where I actually saw somebody throwing the baby's diaper out of the car window. And this really bothered me. I said, throw it on the side of the road. Somebody else will pick it up. Okay. Our second week was much better because we visited 25 sites and had absolutely no problems in stopping, putting the nets in the water, collecting fish, taking water samples. But I urge you to plan your collecting gear accordingly for the environment. I have found that hotels in Mexico were much more expensive than Ivan had indicated earlier. I was expecting to pay somewhere around 20 euros per evening, and it was more like 30. So my funds dried up a little quicker than what I was expecting, but I did find that the cost of food was a lot less expensive and very tasty by anybody's standards. But without the collecting permits, I think that people can get in trouble. I've talked to several people in there, and I will share my experiences in looking for different Zophophorus and Pasilias along the way. We attempted to go towards El Toboso and ran into some travel problems. We had difficulties with the hire car or rented vehicle, so we did not get to El Toboso, but we did find several different species, and this guy over here, Astyanax, is very common. And we did discover probably a new species of cichlid called the Herictes. And there are probably maybe even 3 or 4 undescribed species of Herictes in the area along the way. That's me in my typical American t-shirt. Most of the time I was collecting just wearing an average swimsuit, but I always wore the same kind of footwear that a scuba diver would wear, which was a rubber boot, which in most of the cases was sufficient, but I don't recommend it for the average person. I think that the fisherman's waders would be much more appropriate. We'll talk a little bit more about that as we go along. Did we catch fish? Yes, we caught many, and some of the populations were just prolific in certain areas, typically in the parks in the town, in the areas where people said, okay, we're going to let the children go swimming here, so we'll keep the water clean. We won't go throwing our trash into the water. But I am certainly happy that we went with Ivan, because there were places where you would look at this and say, that's somebody's yard. It's just green. And he said, no, go looking further. And certainly when we did, we were able to pull some of the weeds back and find out that it was just a heavily planted little stream. And in here we did find Alatoka dugazy and one other species that I can't remember at this hour of the morning. So if you can get the fisherman's chest-high waders, stop at Cabela's, stop at Bass Pro Shop, order them online. I think that you will be in much better shape. If you are after anything like Zophophorus, you're not going to catch them with a dip net. They're much too fast. You really do need a sink. You need the long net, because otherwise they're just going to be too fast. I can recommend a place in the USA called Jonah's Aquarium. They do have a website, and they make some very excellent collecting gear. But beware, because the pollution is everywhere. Many times we would pull up at a collection site, and here is a local person washing his car. Or the local families are washing their clothes right in the same area. That's just the way it is down here. And I've got some other pictures. We were talking last night about stopping at a site where it is known that a certain species might exist, and not being able to find them. Say, well, maybe did we come at the wrong time of the day? Did we come at the wrong time of the year? And the answer is, this is like fishing. Do we have any fishing people in the audience? Do you like to go fishing, the rod and the reel? A couple of us? Yeah. They don't call it catching, do they? They call it fishing. It's an attempt to catch the fish. Well, I think that our trip was a lot like the same thing. I don't consider myself a novice at collecting fish. I don't consider myself an expert at collecting fish. But like anything else, sometimes you go there, the fish are there, and sometimes you go there and the fish are not there. Maybe it is the wrong time of the day. Maybe you're using the wrong kind of equipment. Some of the people I've talked to ahead of time said, oh, you must bring the minnow trap, the little wire basket, and put the piece of bread in the middle, and leave that there for a day. Then you come back and you've got, this Zophophorus or that Godiad or something like that. And I strongly recommend that if you have the opportunity, but now you need extra amounts of days. Probably one of the most charming places where you can find many species is the falls at Rio Tamasopo, because we did find several species here, and different ones above the falls and below. But the interesting thing about this is that some person has purchased the land below the falls and turned it into a campsite. So you can actually camp here or go on a picnic here or just go there for swimming. And sure enough, what you're going to find is that people travel through there on their burro or wash their clothes along the side of the stream also. You can see several ladies over here with the laundry. And the children swimming and all that stuff. In talking about it, I'm not so much worried about the pollution from their soap products, from the laundry products, but rather, the big industry down there is putting too much pollution into the water. I will share with you one story that in the Morelia area, I was fortunate enough to collect Bilineata. Now, I'm not much of a scientist. You know, if they're going to call it Neotoca, that's fine with me. If they're going to call it Scyphia, that's fine with me too. Does one make more sense to the other? I don't know. You know, my degree is in mathematics. Please do not hold that against me. But we did catch Zophophorus montezumi below the falls, and this is a Gary Lang photo, but it's a nice picture of the huge swords that the male will carry. It was one of our big success stories. This is the actual fish in the tank after I got it home and got it to grow up. I was able to bring home 22 fish out of this trip in individual little bottles like Ivan recommends, and very good idea. One of the other ones that we were able to get was Pasilia chica. These are Ivan's photos, and maybe almost as pretty as the fish that I saw in Mr. De Jong's tanks the other day. Several species of gambusia, I mean, all kinds of different gambusia all over the place. And this was of a lot of excitement for Christian Saint-Andrea, who is studying these. He's, at the time, was the vice president of Vivipar France, the French Library Association. And this is us at Media Luna. That's me with the bald head in the water trying to catch some fish. And you'll notice that I had no problem getting in the water. I have 3 certifications in scuba. And I just felt, you know, very much at home and walking around in all kinds of different crazy places. I did catch a disease while I was here. And I had to take an antibiotic afterward. But it was only because I was walking down to the river and got scratches on my leg from the brambles, from the bushes along the side. And because the water had some pollution in it, it got a little bit of an infection, which my wife noticed and made me go back and see a doctor. 3 days later, it was gone. So, I experienced no problems other than that. And we did catch some very interesting fish along the way doing this stuff. Unfortunately, we were not able to get the tower eye out of Media Luna, which it is known for. Why? I don't know. They were just not ready to be caught when we were there. But we did stop at one place where this gentleman wanted to change the oil in his big truck. And our guide and interpreter, Roberto, probably spoke with him for 15 or 20 minutes saying, please do not dump the old oil into the river. And the guy did not understand it. He said, well, everybody else does this. So after 15 or 20 minutes, I was explaining to him that if everybody does this, then your grandchildren will not be able to swim in the river or see the fish in the river. The driver did agree that maybe it was a bad idea and probably drove up into some other area and dumped his oil into some dirt. You know. But he did dump it in the river, so I guess we had some success. We did get to the lab and found that all of the goodillas that we really wanted to catch were available through the lab in Morelia. So we had no problems in finding just about everything that we were looking for in there. And the only one that I decided not to bring home was robustus, because they just did not have any small ones. And large fish do not travel well. It's kind of like if Tui and I wanted to sit next to each other on the airplane, it would be a little bit too tight. We put Case on the other side, and then nobody can. We did go looking for a Scylophaena multipunctata without any luck. But we found that, this is the photo I promised you, that the city of Morelia is charming. It is more or less a college community. It is a colonial city. It is a very old city in Mexico. There's a lot of very interesting architecture there. This is a picture of the cathedral in the middle of town, which was only maybe 100 meters from our hotel. We were fortunate to have Ivan always liked to have a good hotel. and he did have some troubles with walking, so we always had a room that was as close to being on the first level as is possible. So turned out to be very nice. Food was excellent, had some entertainment. Here is himself in the Morelia lab, and those of you who know Omar can see him in the background here. At the time, the lab was undergoing reconstruction because their metal racks for their aquaria were rusting out. They just did not last, and they, of course, did not have the money to build some out of aluminum or stainless steel. I'm not picking anybody here, am I?
No.
Okay. So they made them out of this poured concrete, reinforced concrete for their aquaria, and I did remark that, you know, when they got it done, and they were rushing the graduates who were working until 2 o'clock in the morning because the Vipers conference was starting in 2 or 3 days, and they wanted to, you know, make the place look pretty. This is their outdoor vats at the Morelia lab. Their collection of fish in formaldehyde was extensive. They probably did have every fish available in Mexico. Can you verify that? Every fish that exists in Mexico is in their lab now, either live or in formaldehyde.
One or two pieces of.
Yeah. One or two, maybe not.
Maybe 2 or 3. Maybe 2 or 3 pieces of there are.
So either dead or alive.
Yeah.
Well, remember that the academics would much rather study the dead fish. They don't move around a lot. they stay where they put them under the microscope, and it does not disturb the DNA. So they're very happy with this. I always put this photo in because turnerai is one of the rarest fish in the United States. Certainly many fewer than I have experienced in talking with people here. It seems like it is much more plentiful here than it is in the USA amongst the hobbyists. And if I were to put the American Live Bearer Association meeting in this room, we would probably have twice as many people. An interesting crocodile, and I suggest that when we start talking about crocodile in general, that we just refer to them by their location, because the scientists right now are saying, well, do we have 2 species? Do we have 3 species? Do we have 4 species of crocodile? And the answer is, I don't know. Do you know? I'd like to find out. I asked several people, I said, you know, what is the cost of the project? And I heard numbers everywhere from like 10,000 euros to maybe 70,000 euros for the definitive study. And I said, I can't afford that out of my wallet today. Maybe going forward we can help with that. The symposium was very interesting. They had people there from like 13 different countries delivering papers. More on the academic side. You know, we're talking about people, you know, delivering their doctoral thesis and such. But the interesting thing that I found is that individually, it's like this. It's just 2 people talking about fish. So, you know, the information sharing was quite extensive. And the interesting part about this, that Ivan was honored for his work. He was. Do I have a picture of the plaque? No, I don't have a picture of the plaque. I was looking for the nice. They gave him a plaque, one side in English and one side in Espanol. And the presentation was made by the people there. This is Arcadio Valdez. This is Rebecca Rueda, who was the director of the lab while Omar was finishing his doctoral work. And it was a very friendly group. Dr. Contreras has since passed away, I understand. And the interesting thing about that, he was working with the removal of the hypostomus that were invading the rivers in Mexico at the time. And I said, well, gee, how did you do that? He said, well, they were netting them, just dragging nets through the river trying to get them out. But that was unsuccessful because they would actually burrow into the bank of the river and make their nests there, lay the eggs there. So they had plecos all over the place. And then Roberta told me that one of the better successes is to create a cookbook on how to prepare plecos for dinner. Let the locals know what was going on. So, you recognize this guy over here? I don't think I have your photo in here. I know you were there, but
You're standing there.
Are you in there somewhere?
Yeah. Mixed.
Oh yeah, there you are. You're hiding.
I'm hiding this.
And I even met some academic types of Marie Carmen. Yeah, she was the director of the entire conference. She put that together with I don't have his photo in here. And this is mainly the American contingent that was down here. Quite interesting. He's smoking an Iliadon. We had some great entertainment at the hotel too, but you don't need a doctoral thesis in order to share information. It's just get together and talk about fish. So it was an excellent time. All of the people who came to visit got the detailed tour of the lab, and a lot of them did jump in the car and go off to the local places like Rancho Molino and La Manzita, which are probably within 30 minutes drive of the Morelia lab. And it was only by chance that we stopped at Rio Grande de Morelia, walked down to the river, and that's where I caught Bilineata. And the fish is not there anymore, I am told, that because of pollution upstream, that it maybe lives only in about 30 meters of the river now. And it's kilometers upstream from where it is. This is what Omar is telling me now. But regardless of why you attended this conference, I found that people who are into fish really do enjoy talking about fish at any level. And seriously, I believe that the academics who were there shared as much information as did the hobbyist type like I am, because we're probably better at keeping them alive in the aquarium than the academics are. I mean, they depend on grad students who maybe have never had an aquarium to do this stuff. And many people talked about studying the reproductive system of the Godiad to see if they could help mammals like us. But I also determined that there are many people who deliver the lectures there who would be happy to talk to the average fish club if they were given the opportunity. Maybe one of the best came out to Puerto Rico, but I got his card someplace. I can't remember his name. There were two academics from my own home state, which is, Connecticut is a very small state. I mean, you can get across it in maybe 90 minutes of travel by auto. Did we need $1,000 permits to collect the fish? Yeah. Well, the government says so, but I found that the easiest thing to do was to go down to the local pet shop, buy some feeder fish, get a receipt that said I bought fish out of a pet shop, and show that to anybody who asked me where I got the fish. Having that piece of information was invaluable because I never had a problem getting fish back into the USA when I had a receipt from a pet shop. And it is more difficult to get fish from Mexico into the USA than it is to get them into Holland or to England or to even, I've sent fish to Japan by mail, by post, and had no problems whatsoever. Mexico to the USA, be careful. The live bearers that we sought were not easy to find. I suspect that if we had Edgar from the lab with us more often, we would have had better luck in catching the fish. One of the grad students gave us some assistance, and we were in the wrong part of the lake. We were on the wrong side of the river. We were looking in the weeds, but they were in deeper water and things like that. So if the people who have been there to collect in that particular area were much more valuable to us than the equipment we had, because although we had the GPS point, you know, that fish is here, we could go there and not even see them. There's a knife. Another myth, fish are easy to bring home. I am firmly convinced that the fish from the lab are much easier to get home than the ones I collect in the wild. Wild fish are difficult to bring home and put in your aquarium. Domesticated fish, F1s, F2s from the lab, are much easier. They travel easier, you can get smaller fish. When you go collecting the fish, you don't know what size you're going to catch in the net. I'll show you in a minute, I think. And that's in the other program. And be very careful. I mean, the plastic bag that you use is probably not the best way to travel to your country from Mexico carrying fish. Follow the British advice and use the water bottle or the species collecting container. It is much easier because the hard side will not have any trouble. I would take the bottles, I would put them in a small styrofoam box, I put them in a hard-sided suitcase. I never had a problem with damage or breakage. And I've done this many times. I brought fish home from the Dominican Republic, from other places in the Caribbean, and had no problems. What will I do different on my next trip? Number one, I will do more research on the individual sites. I've gotten into fishing now that I'm not working as frequently as I used to. So I know that where the fish hide are not always where people tell you they hide. So to go find them, I will look at the sites and I'll try to get photos as well as GPS points. I will bring my chest-high waders, and I'm not going to get sick again over this stuff. And I find that because you walk around in the river, you come out at night and your socks are just like incredibly smelly. So, one of the problems we had was to find the place to wash the clothes. So, I mean, I wound up having to ask the hotel to wash some clothes for me, and they charged me like 25 euros. I said, what? So if I had waited till I got to Morelia 2 days later, I could have gone to the lavanderia right near the university there and done it for maybe 2 euros. My mistake. And I will take better notes on where I was and how I did the things so I can share that better, whether it be doing a presentation or writing an article for some publication. And I won't ask other people to remember, give me the chemical composition of the water here. Yeah, Red, I'll write it down for you, I'll give it to you tonight. And the next day we're doing something else and you forget, and then you get the fish and you say, where did I get this? What was the water like? So I don't know whether I wanted to bring the recorder or just, the videotape machine or something like that, but I want to have it all done myself so that when I'm doing the water changes that night in the hotel, I can remember, which one did we stop at? Where were we? What did we do? Because after 30 sites, they all begin to run together in my mind. You get to be a little bit different. But you can find some very large fish there. We did visit Rancho Molino. How big is that fish? You don't want to try to bring home something that large. You want the babies, because then you can put maybe 2 in the little jar instead of half of this one. So this one went back. And you've got to be a little bit careful about what else is in the net when you scoop this out of the river, so that you don't have something trying to bite your finger while you're taking the fish out. Be a little careful of that also. This was just one of them that someone else brought to the lab while we were there, so I took a photo of it. The crocodile from Los Pinos. And not my photo, this is Monsieur Giroche took this photo, but I was very lucky, and I still call it Scaphia because that's what it was called when I collected it. I was very fortunate that when I packaged these up and put them in my suitcase, my luggage, I did not lose any, but you have to look at it and say, they're not all going to make it home. Bring the papers that you need. I like Emolock 2 now. I find that Emolock 2, the product, is a little bit better at not only reducing ammonia, but also helping the fish to stay nice and sedated in the bottle while you bring them home. It's kind of like, I better bring 2 of these in the car because I know I have to listen to what's his name while we're driving back home today, or tomorrow, whenever. I'm not saying anything I shouldn't.
No.
Thank you. I did receive a shipment lately where somebody was using cordon breeder bags, and the improved cordon breeder bag is an excellent way of shipping fish, and I use them all the time in the States, but the amount that you put into the box is important. One of the bags that was shipped to me recently was on the bottom and it ruptured, so the water bottles are a lot less apt to have problems in shipping. There is some quality control concerns with the cordon breeder bag. I am really hoping that somebody else comes up with one very soon. I understand somebody has. I have not seen it yet. And don't make the mistake I did. Have plenty of tanks available so that when you do get home from a trip like this, that you have room for everybody. Because I got home at like 2 o'clock in the afternoon, and 3 o'clock the next morning, I'm still saying, I have fish that I don't have an aquarium for, and I don't want to put them in with this, and I don't want to put them in with that. I better set up another aquarium. So I made a mistake in not having a sufficient number of tanks available to receive the fish when I returned, because I was going crazy. Is it still worthwhile to go down there? And the answer is absolutely, if nothing else to help conservation. One of my friends in the ALA, the American Library Association, tells me that there are probably 4 new species to be described just in the Zophophorus genus. In traveling to different areas, they said, well, this is not this and that's not that, so it's a good chance that it's a new species. And they're coming back with just about every trip. One of them he has suggested would be called Zophophorus Che Guevara, and name it after a famous bandito from Mexico because it sneaks up on the female and attacks, if you know what I mean. Always like this one. I mean, you can actually find these guys in the wild, so if you happen to be in the Zophophorus, they are plentiful, but you're not going to catch them in a dip net. You got to get the seine out there because they're just too fast. But find out a little bit more about these and help endangered species. The American Library Association has established the Langheimer Fund for Conservation. I won't go into the details on Fish Art Mexico. That's a separate conversation. And I encourage folks to join the local and the regional clubs as well as the national clubs to support the hobby because I'm not going to be speaking for another 20 years, maybe another 5 or 10. I don't know. Somebody's going to have to do this stuff when we get too old to travel. So, whether you read the books or surf the internet, the information is out there on what you need to know in order to plan your visits to the different places like this. The American Library Association does have a special membership for folks in Europe where you can receive their bulletin via PDF file or paper, your choice. And it is much improved over what it was several years ago. We do have a group that's a regional group in the United States called the Northeast Library Association. I was wearing that shirt yesterday. We have about 30 members in the area between New York and Boston. I really enjoy meeting with those folks. It's the average aquarist who's very much into helping the libraries, and several of the members are part of the GWG in North America. Or you can join me in November November of next year when we return to Morelia for hopefully what will be a very successful conference. on all of this stuff. This is Edgar. Do you know Edgar? Or- One goes no and one goes yes? Okay, that's good. And Colin? Yes? Colin Grist from the UK? And where's Fred? Is he here yet?
No, too early.
Too early? A little note on this. Ivan never believed in traveler's checks, and he always carried his pouch on his hip. He always had plenty of cash with him in case he ran into an opportunity to support conservation. Merci, Monsieur Madame. Thank you very much, Don, for inviting me here. I hope that you enjoyed this program.
Thank you very much.